The Infiniti QX60 is brand new for 2026 and as a 3-row luxury mid-size crossover has some nice updates to it. It's got some sleek styling revisions, nice interior amenities, and some updated powertrain choices. But is it enough to compete with the likes of Genesis, Mercedes, and BMW? Well, let's dig into it. The QX60's larger sibling, the QX80, now it's the QX60's turn. It borrowed from the QX80 in that it's got this large frontal grille, piano key styling in its headlights, and some just chicer overall appearances. It looks aggressive and muscular and determined, if you will. And on this sport model in particular, it has a lot of gloss black trim, including the grille area, but what I like about it in particular is it has this dark chrome across the top and down below, which nicely contrasts with the silver Infiniti badge. And by the way, that badge lights up, which is a new styling continues alongside the QX60 with some generally muscular lines. I dig this particular middle line along the center that kind of comes to a flat surface on the rear fender. It looks good. It looks like it's got widened fenders to me. And then, as this is a sport model, the black trim continues throughout, such as the mirrors and then the trim along the windows. And we've got some cladding here as well that outlines the wheel wells and down below. This model also has a black roof plus 20-inch black wheels. And around back, the first thing you notice is this very large Infiniti badge across the rear hatch. Then, when you look up, there is a kind of overhang spoiler accent above the window, and the taillights are crisp, kind of mirror the same shape as up front, but what I love with this black trim in the middle. Beneath the QX60's large hood is a turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder making 268 horsepower and 286 pound-feet of torque, and that's thanks to Infiniti's variable compression technology. Now, that's hooked up to a 9-speed automatic transmission, and overall fuel economy is 24 miles per gallon or so. If you opt for the base 2 trims, you can choose either front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. However, if you opt for the upper 2 trims, then your sole choice is all-wheel drive. The 2026 Infiniti QX60 comes in 4 trims: Pure, Luxe, Sport, and Autograph. It starts off at $55,000 for that Pure. Now, if you want the full-blown Autograph, that's $68,000. However, this Sport, that's the second highest, that's $63,500. And then if you'd rather have front-wheel drive instead of all-wheel drive on those first 2 trims, well, just subtract $2,000. Inside the QX60, there's a lot to talk about, but first and foremost, I really like how much room I have in here. The driving position is pretty optimal. I've got a ton of headroom, and I really like that I can bring the steering wheel nice and close to myself. That doesn't happen very often when you're 6'3" and have long legs, so kudos there. Otherwise, when it comes to materials, there's a lot of nice soft touch surfaces throughout. And I'll kick it off with the seats. You have this beautiful soft touch material that's stitched and looks quite nice. And then the same goes for up on the dashboard. Also, the dashboard is accented with some cool open pore wood. And yes, it is actual wood. It's not just imitation plastic. Additionally, on this sport model, you have sunset blue accents throughout. It's cool that it's not just a bright blue, it's not just black, but no, it is a very pleasant, more regal blue. When it comes to shiny materials, yeah, there's a little bit of piano black across the trim, but it's really not that bad. Down below, though, you do have a more satin chrome look, which I like because satin chrome doesn't show fingerprints as much. But the climate control in the middle of the center dash, that is just a glossy black, so that will show fingerprints. And it is, of course, a material that you do touch a lot. I dig the steering wheel on this thing. It reminds me of a steering wheel from an early 2000s Mercedes-Benz. It's reminiscent of the feel and look. Drop a comment down below if you know what I'm talking about. For bumping tunes in the QX60, it varies depending upon trim quite a bit. You opt for that entry-level Pure trim, and you just get a standard 9-speaker stereo. However, move up to the Luxe and the Sport trim, and you get a 16-speaker Klipsch system. Move up to the Autograph, and you get 20 Klipsch speakers. When it comes to screens, you get a digital instrument cluster that's nicely laid out and easy to read, and then you get a 12.3-inch Infiniti Touch screen and software. And moving around, selecting different apps, scrolling, whatever, it's all very smooth and easy. And interestingly, not only do you have the ability to change settings, particularly audio settings, in the infotainment screen, but you also do on the lower touchpad, and this thing has a center control knob that you can scroll around with. And finally, we have audio buttons on the steering wheel as well, so it gives you many options for scrolling through your tunes to get through your Klipsch audio system. On the base Pure, you get a digital rear view camera, which that's standard, that's mandated by government regulation. However, move up to the Luxe, Sport, and Autograph, and you get a nice 360 surround camera. When it comes to stowing away things in the QX60, we've got a large center armrest bin, and then this thing has respectably large door cubbies. You can fit a large bottle in there, no problem whatsoever, and then some. And finally, there's a large tray area down below the center console for storage as well, and it does have a grippy surface so stuff doesn't slide around very easily. To keep passengers comfortable, we have 2 climate zones up front, which is accented by heated and ventilated seats plus a heated steering wheel. And finally, when it comes to charging your devices, we have a single charging pad right here in the middle and 2 USB-C charging ports. The luxury vibes continue from up front here in the second row. First of all, we have our own climate zone back here, nicely outlined and easy to configure. And down below are 2 USB-C charging ports. For storage, well, we've got 2 large cup holders in the middle, plus this big storage cubby, and then, just like up front, some big cubbies in the doors. Now, I'm 6'3", and I mentioned that the front seat area has lots of headroom, and it's not horrible back here. It's to be expected that I'm going to have a little bit of contact with the roof. However, the seat does slide back and forth, and it does recline very easily. So if I wanted to lay back and give myself more headroom and be more comfortable on a road trip, that's the way to do it. And to either let in or block out natural light, there's a massive sunroof across the top that really makes it feel very pleasant in here. However, if I want a little more privacy or I want to take a nap, I do have a manual sunshade here, which is a nice touch. And as you can tell by my cramped seating position, I'm now in the third row. Back here, it's actually really not terrible. It's to be expected. They don't have much headroom. And legroom, yeah, not ideal, but still not bad. I will say that when you go to move the adjustments on the top of the seats to either move it forward or backward, if you're gonna have people sit back here, definitely make sure it's back, because when you get in, you're otherwise scrunched forward. But you may be asking, what sort of luxury amenities do the third row passengers get? You do have the stitched material on the seats. That's nice, that's comfortable, but otherwise just a USB-C charging port on the right side, and then some cup holders. Oh, and then a non-charged phone pad in the middle. And finally, here in the back, cargo room starts out at 14.5 cubic feet. However, drop the third row and that expands to 41.6 cubic feet. And then if you drop both the third and second rows, you get a massive 75.4. Interestingly, you don't just have this floor, you actually open it up and you've got a pretty sizable cubby down here for keeping things more contained, or maybe some like muddy hiking shoes, things like that. And then when you go to drop down this third row, you pull down on that and then press this, and then that drops down nice and flat very easily. You don't have to really struggle with the second row on some newer cars. So when I first saw the size of the QX60 and then saw those horsepower numbers, again, respectable horsepower numbers for 2 liters, I was expecting it to be a little slow, a little sluggish, and maybe just not feel like it's adequate for this thing's big size. However, behind the wheel of the QX60, it's got plenty of power. That 268 horsepower and 286 pound-feet of torque, it comes on and it's lively. In fact, I'm currently in sport mode, which makes the steering a little bit heavier, sharpens up the throttle, and makes the transmission more responsive. This thing is legitimately fun to dice through corners with. Additionally, it's got good steering response. Now, this doesn't have adaptive dampers, it just has conventional passive dampers and coil springs, but really, steering response is great, and I really like the ratio as well. I'd say the only downside to the situation is its Bridgestone tires. I'm going through these corners with not a whole lot of gusto, and I can hear them getting angry at me. If this thing came with, say, something more performance-oriented, this chassis would really shine. I've got a tiny little straightaway right here, and if I dump the throttle, you feel that torque curve, and it's got a lot of it down low. Overall, ride quality and body control, things of that nature, no real complaints there. In fact, as I move over little cracks and undulations in the pavement and whatnot, it feels nicely isolated and solid, and that's indicative of this being a luxury automobile. The QX60 has a lot of different drive modes. If I want to switch between sport and auto, I select this button in the center console, and then not only do the modes show up on the center screen, but also it shows you a picture of the button, interestingly. So just to remind you that, yes, you are pressing the drive mode button. But anyway, if I want to switch to that and not have as aggressive of throttle tuning, or say, have it hold gears, I just want to cruise along gently, it does that quite well too. Again, this is a luxury automobile. The transmission is still very responsive. You go up a little bit of an incline here, put your foot down just a little bit, and it shifts in a good amount of time. No complaints there. And then the power response is still good. I mean, Having 20 more torque than horsepower, you know that this is a torquey power plant, even if it is a 2-liter. Additionally, just getting a little bit further into that luxury aspect with this QX60, it's a 2-liter 4-cylinder and it doesn't make a very good noise, but to be expected for a turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder. They all kind of sound like this. They don't instill a lot of aggression, and it just sounds like a aggressive purring cat under there. But there is a lot of isolation from noise and vibration and whatnot. I mean, when you put your foot down, I mean, you hear the noise, but you don't really get that vibration that a lot of turbocharged 4-cylinder cars can sometimes have. But what about being aware of your surroundings on the road? Well, the visibility here is just fine. I am down low in the seat and I have a lot of headroom, but I still feel like I'm just high enough to where I can see around the QX60's interior very well. And when I look over my left shoulder, I will say that the larger rear windows do help with making sure the C-pillar doesn't conceal as much on the road. And I do like the view ahead because it doesn't drop away like on some modern cars, which I appreciate that too, but I like that you get just a little bit of the front fenders and hood and you know how to place them. It helps you place the car on the road, and yeah, no qualms there. And so that, my friends, is the 2026 Infiniti QX60. It's redesigned for this model year with some sharper styling throughout, some sportier accents here and there, nice interior amenities, and while the power plant doesn't sound all that impressive, I mean, it's a 2-liter replacing a 3.5-liter V6, but this new power plant is nice. It's fun, it's lively, it really gets this thing moving. As far as how this competes against, say, Genesis, Mercedes, and BMW, well, I think it's right there, especially in regards to the soft touch, nice interior amenities. One should definitely take it into account when they're shopping in this segment. For more information on the 2026 Infiniti QX60 or any of its competitors, click the link in the description down below. And we'll see you next time.